Hello, welcome back to another episode. And goodness me, have you been loving learning about perimenopause and menopause? And I have another brilliant guest for you today to really look at this journey from her perspective, but also from her professional expertise. And wait till you learn what today's guest has gone and done, driven by her own journey and combining all of her professional experience and her great loves and professional expertise. It's just extraordinary, and just another example of how a person driven with a real sense of purpose is, and also seeing a real gap, is capable of doing so much. Today's guest joining me all the way from WA, which is on the west coast, the westernmost state of Australia for my beautiful international audience, is the brilliant Kirsten Bouse. And I honestly, I'm in Victoria, which is on the other side of Australia. And I know, Kirsten, we could be friends for so many reasons. And I'm just going to call it. So what I've been learning about Kirsten as I've been preparing to chat to you today, Kirsten, is that you love music and musical theatre. You love the fresco keep cup. You're a mum and you are a driven working woman. You're on the other side of the perimenopause journey. And you are, like many women listening, I don't know how you fellas find this, but oh my gosh, you just find that your stuff gets borrowed and not returned, or maybe broken. And I'm just relating to you on so many levels. I'm not a singer outside of my home and my car and my shower, but love musical theatre so much. And doesn't singing give you such a buzz? Before we dive into kind of why we're joining each other today on the podcast, but doesn't it make you feel so good?
It does, and I believe it's something to do as well with activating the vagus nerve. But for me, I've been singing all my life, and singing, you know, as a kid and a teenager, I guess the circumstances under which I was singing and things were always lots of fun and good memories. So I think as well it just has that I have that conditioned response that, singing now actually still feels really, really good. And I go to the musical theatre choir and I'm like, you just can't come home in a bad mood when you've spent your time singing musical theatre songs. You just can't. So I love it.
You can't. And I didn't know there was such a thing until I was looking at some of your posts on Instagram. We'll share Kirsten's Instagram, and I'll put this one in the show notes as well. Is it the Australian Musical Theatre Choir?
Choir, yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Just a community choir, so a lot of people are like, "Oh, that sounds impressive." But yeah, it is Australia-wide, and it's a community choir. It's low-key and loads of fun. You don't have to be by any means a good singer. Anyone can go. Yeah, I highly recommend it. If you're a musical theatre nerd like me, it's the way to go. I look back to school and I didn't have, I guess I was, living with an undiagnosed anxiety disorder. And I do remember I was in the Rocker Stedfords and I was happy to dance and perform a couple of lines in the school play. But I look at what's available now for kids and it's pretty exciting. And our daughter's a musical theatre kid and she just loves it. So we're just right into theatre and I'm singing the soundtrack to Zeusical at the moment in my car and loving it. Anyway. That sounds good.
Thanks so much for joining me and to give you listeners a background on Kirsten that is relevant to why she's joining us today. Kirsten is a clinical and forensic psychologist, and so she has been working in this field for over 3 decades. And one of the things that Kirsten has done in the past, she founded and was at the helm of the Perth Psychology Collective, which was a group private practice. She's actually sold that business and has moved into a space that is really driven by her experiences, as so many of us are when we go through something and we look for help or we look for resources and support and we realise, hey, there's a gap here. I'm not getting what I need. How can I find what I need? But also, how can I help other people find what they need? It was really at the heart of Kirsten launching in March of just this year, 2024, prompted by her own perimenopause journey. She has launched All About Her, the Centre for Menopause, which is a community of practitioners from a wide range of health-related disciplines. So we'll talk more about the various disciplines that have come together in this professional community as well. And that means that if you're navigating perimenopause or this menopausal change, and you're looking for someone who's trusted, who's informed, knowledgeable, and is able to actually help you, this is going to be a place that you can go and find a practitioner, hopefully, fairly close and local to you. So, Kirsten, I applaud you on all that you've done. You're obviously, and you are also on your own ADHD journey as well. So you are very productive, and from what I've learned about ADHD, and particularly from a previous guest, is that very driven often and really striving to keep doing and achieving, and really values and purpose driven. So it's just a real pleasure to have you here and for you to be able to share what you've learned with us. Personally and professionally, and how other women on this journey can get the support that's going to be really impactful to ease that transition for them. So welcome.
Thank you. My gosh, that's a lot of really lovely things that you've shared. And yes, I'm also late diagnosed ADHD. And when I was somewhat doubtful as to whether it was accurate, I was encouraged to step back and look at my career.
Okay.
And it was like, no, okay, maybe that's, the evidence. Although I appreciate, you have to look further back than just your adult life and things. But perimenopause. I'm postmenopausal now, but perimenopause was certainly a surprise and a shock and a difficult time. And for me, I just really discovered how difficult it was to find certain kind of health practitioners who were menopause informed. And I'm pretty persistent, reasonably well-resourced and educated. And I thought, man, if I'm finding it difficult to find health practitioners who can support me, and also, if I wanted to refer clients for other types of health services, I was finding it difficult. Then, a perimenopausal woman, menopausal woman who's really struggling, it's just going to give up because it's just too bloody hard. So I really thought that, I've got to do something about this. I've got to try and make it easier to find menopause-informed health practitioners for women in Australia.
Well, thank you for doing that. And it is such a difficult stage of life. Reading some of the work that you've been publishing and sharing, and some of the statistics, over 1 billion women will be experiencing menopause by 2025. I mean, that alone is just so hard to wrap your head around. I need a metaphor for a billion. I think I'll need to look at one of those just to kind of help us kind of get a picture of it, because it's just such a ginormous number. And women can, as we know, like you can, it's so much more than just a hot flush, which is, obviously that experience of just somebody just like turning on the internal radiator and you just feel this heat and you can sweat, get pink in the cheeks and just feel super hot, like you've got to strip a few layers on. But it's so much more than that. And women can feel full of rage, can't they? And feel like I'm losing my marbles, and just the mental health and the physical health effects are really, in the same way that, if you're having problems with your tummy or with your bowels or with your, hamstrings, you go, I know where to go. I'll start at the GP. But with this, it's different, isn't it? Because the GP might not necessarily have the expertise or necessarily be connected with someone who does. Can you talk us through that a little bit more?
Yeah, look, my personal and my professional experience is, being told by my GP that, well, not even told actually. I was the one that discovered I was perimenopausal. It wasn't even mentioned or flagged to me that it was a possibility, which is interesting because I had a hysterectomy and yes, I kept my ovaries. So you don't go into menopause immediately when you keep your ovaries, but you do begin perimenopause. And most women will begin perimenopause after a hysterectomy really, really soon.
Right.
And in hindsight, I did within 6 months. So I was 42-ish when I had my hysterectomy. And in hindsight, I definitely began perimenopause. So, but my GP who knew that history, and even the gynecologist who did the surgery when I was kind of referred back to him for some ongoing issues, neither of them mentioned this. And that's not an uncommon story. So clinically in my practice, and even just when I talk at different workshops and trainings and opportunities that I get to talk, I have so many women coming up to me and they'll be saying things like, I was told I was too young. I was told if I was not having hot flushes and night sweats, then I wasn't menopausal. I was told if I still had my period, then, that I wasn't menopausal either, which is kind of true, but it misses the fact that they're likely to be perimenopause.
Yes.
Perimenopausal. There's a whole bunch of, as well, this is just a woman's lot in life and, sorts of things. Or I'm burnt out, I need to do more yoga, I need to delegate more at home.
We probably need that too.
Midlife women are really, really busy, just need to try and find a way to be less busy. I've just heard it all. And my menopause-informed GP colleagues have actually told me that at best there's a 1-hour lecture on menopause in the current GP training, and that's at best. So some people may well miss it entirely. So yeah, it's not cool, and it's not surprising that GPs don't know. And sadly, the proportion of menopause-informed GPs is I can't give you a percentage, but it's ridiculously low. It's increasing because menopause is having its moment in the sun.
Yes.
Probably for the last 12 months here in Australia, but there's still an awfully long way to go. And, this is as equally relevant for our own profession as psychologists and allied health as well. We just have no knowledge of this kind of stuff, and we really need to.
So true. And I love that you said it's having its moment in the sun. It is, when my mum was going through it, was called the change, and I hated that. I don't know what connotations or what, it just seemed very much something you didn't talk about. And I think that was probably it, because I kind of knew it was a bit, I don't know how to describe it, but I just sort of got this sense that we don't really talk about this. And, it's, and so therefore, to have been at the doctor and shared with other guests before, when I went through and had just a series of blood tests done, and the doctor was ticking them off, kind of, thyroid, triglycerides, cholesterol, and went postmenopausal. I'm like, say what? Like, whoa. Like, okay, interesting. I was predicting my journey would be really difficult, like my mother's was, whereas in fact, I was on the other side of it and hadn't I knew I was experiencing night sweats and hot flushes. But so very, I'm very lucky in that sense, I suppose, that it wasn't derailing for me like it is for so many. And I guess because I'm so conscious of my mental health, and I know that 1 in 3 women will experience severe psychological symptoms, which I'm taking again from the work that you've been sharing. 1 in 4 severe physical symptoms. So I guess as it was affecting my psychological health, I'm all over it. I'm just so right on it. So I was very lucky like that. But not everyone is. And what I have also learned, again, through your work, is that 23% of women report that life isn't worth living. That's nearly 1 in 4 going through. So we've been talking about perimenopause and menopause. Perhaps a really good place to start is really clarifying what we're talking about here. So could you just walk us through that first, please, Kirsten?
Sure. Well, I'll start with menopause, which, is a term that actually, and you'll probably hear me mention it, throughout the conversation. So it can be used to talk about this whole period of time, and that's because it's just somewhat, it's quicker to do that, to do the shorthand. But the reality is that menopause is actually just one day. It's one day 12 months after she's had her last period. And for those of us who had a hysterectomy and therefore hadn't had a period for a long time, we don't have that gauge. But, nonetheless, that is the proper term. And once you've had that day, the next day and every day thereafter until you are no longer feet on the earth is referred to as postmenopausal. And so we spend a very long period of time in our kind of menopausal transition. The average Australian woman would kind of reach menopause at the age of 51. And so that is a really long time to be postmenopausal, if you're kind of thinking from there. However, there is this period of time which is often referred to as perimenopause. Now, there's some kind of peri actually means around the time of. So when we talk about perinatal, we're talking about around the time of pregnancy and birth.
Yes.
And when we're talking perimenopausal, we're talking around the time of menopause. And so, some people would actually say then that even soon after kind of the day of menopause, it's still around the time of menopause. So you can use peri to mean both before and after. But it's typically used to refer to the period of time before you actually reach menopause. And that period of time can be anywhere between kind of 3 to 12 years. I think the average for Australian women is about 8. That you are going to be actually experiencing most of the symptoms that can come with, this particular transition, the menopausal transition. So if you're kind of thinking that the average age is 51, and then perhaps unfortunately you drew the short straw and you're someone who started this process 12 or more years ago, I think 15 is even possible, then we're talking in our late 30s. Where this particular process can start. And it's really the period of time where our hormones are very much fluctuating. So basically, our ovaries are kind of sputtering to the end of their life. We're getting to the end of our eggs, that's the process as well. Menopause is when we have no eggs left. All of this happens in the brain. So the brain tells our ovaries what to do or what not to do, and all the rest. But essentially, it's when our estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone is overall declining. But the tricky thing of this period of time in the lead up to menopause is that there are significant fluctuations. So whilst there's this overall decline, you can actually get some really big peaks and troughs. And that's what kind of causes the crazy. And I kind of mean that both seriously and a bit facetiously. It's the period of time where we are most likely to have the most challenging time with this transition in our lives. And often people do associate menopause, whatever version of that definition they're using, but the word menopause, they will think, okay, yeah, hot flushes and night sweats. But what we actually know is they are often the last kind of symptoms, the vasomotor symptoms they're referred to. They tend to be the last symptoms that show up, if at all, prior to hitting menopause. The symptoms that show up most likely show up and most often show up early are the cognitive and psychological symptoms. So the changes in mood, as well as the changes in cognitive functioning like memory, brain fog, all of those kinds of things. So if you're kind of thinking, okay, well, we might be in our late 30s, early 40s when this process starts, and we're starting to feel like our brain's not, we're trying to think through cotton wool, we're having difficulty finding our words, word finding is really common. We're putting keys in fridges, car keys in fridges absentmindedly. We're finding we're snapping at people a fair bit. We're just not as patient or tolerant as we used to be. We're feeling some really low patches as well. And we're just really not feeling like ourselves. And probably the word that I hear the most is overwhelmed. So we've gone from this woman who's quite capable, can juggle many, many things, doesn't drop too many balls, but generally is feeling competent, capable, resilient, and all the rest, to feeling overwhelmed very often, very quickly, and dropping lots of balls. And those are the things that tend to show up in the early stages and through the period of perimenopause leading up to menopause. It doesn't necessarily magically disappear the day after your last period either, but it does tend to improve the further you move into your postmenopausal years.
Oh, it's so interesting. And one of the symptoms that you just talked about was something that I didn't know was a symptom, and that's finding the right word for something. And oh my gosh.
That's my ongoing problem. We'll see how I go in this conversation.
Yes. Well, I mean, can you imagine as a podcaster, it's like, how am I going to go? And, there have been times when I've had to pause a recording and go, oh my goodness, I've just completely lost a word. And And so I did not know that, and it makes me anxious because I think, what is going on with my mind? Like, I don't understand, why is this so hard? So these symptoms, understanding there are so many, and also what you said before about the night sweats and the hot flushes. Flashes, I'm not sure. Flushes, either.
I think in Australia we call them flushes, but in the US they're flashes.
Oh, okay. Just to know that they're kind of more sort of towards the end of that journey. And I'd had an ablation, hence the reason that I didn't have a period. So of course I couldn't easily track it. And so it was, so for women to kind of, like, it's so important we're more informed. We're more informed, and we can be supported on this, that you can go to someone who, and you can say, hey, first of all, knowing I'm in and around the age bracket, this is something to consider as a cause of kind of what I'm experiencing psychologically and cognitively and physically, and then to be able to speak to someone who can say, right, tell me what you're experiencing, and then to be able to kind of talk through the fact that there's an explanation for it, because whatever's unknown makes us so anxious, and it is. And this stage of life, I really do. Our son will be driving in about 18 months, and I don't wish away the time at all. I don't, but I am also, but did you say but? You knew that was coming.
I did. Yeah.
Yes. I just sort of think, like, this is my day today. So my husband's away for a few nights, and so kids to school, home, and then I had a pre-record call from home. Then I'm into the studio to record this conversation with you, which is brilliant and joyful, and then home to do one school pickup, then another school pickup because somebody's got an activity, and then I've got to arrange another parent to please pick up another child for something else. I can't take them because I've got a meeting, and then I've got to go and pick the said child up from that, and I'm just like, and that's Monday.
Yeah.
And so we are doing a lot.
We are. And just on the driving note, I've got 4 kids, and my youngest has just got his L's.
Oh,
so
wow.
So I had this little reprieve where I didn't have to drive because his older brother would drive the 2 of them to school. The other 2 are young adults. And that was really lovely. But I'm back to driving because he's logging his hours, so we're back to doing the school run with him driving and me supervising. But he's my last to get the license. So,
gosh.
I'm going to have that milestone this time next year where I've got all of my kids driving, and it makes a huge difference for sure in terms of the busyness of life. And so, I think often there's a discussion around how much of these symptoms can be attributed to the hormonal shifts and how much can be attributed to just the craziness of a midlife woman's life. And I think we do need to recognise that the symptoms are driven by hormonal changes. The symptoms of perimenopause and menopause are caused by all these hormonal shifts. And that's because we have particularly estrogen receptors everywhere in our body. And so when our estrogen is declining, then it affects every system in our body. And that's why it's such a systemic impact. But this isn't happening in a vacuum. Yeah. So we do also need to understand that there's all these other kind of things that can either moderate or exacerbate our experience of the symptoms. And, I've met many women who've said to me, my sleep is absolutely terrible for whatever reason, I can't think, all these kinds of things. And they said, if I didn't have to work as much, or if I didn't have to work at all, then it may not be quite so bad. I may not feel quite so crap. Equally, I've had women say, well, I could manage my symptoms so much better when I didn't, when my parents passed away or my parent who I'd been caring for had passed away, because it alleviated one of the big kind of time-based and emotional-based kind of stressors for me. Yes. And so we have to recognise that, we are living creatures, where our bodies are doing their thing within this broader context in which we live. And there's this reciprocal kind of relationship that occurs, each impact each other. And so, it's really important that we understand that, because that also helps us, as much as our circumstances can allow. We can start to maybe look at ways to support ourselves, both by what we internally do and also maybe how we kind of structure our lives on the outside.
Yes, this idea that some things can moderate and some things can exacerbate. And then it's, like you say, it's looking at, well, where can we make change? Where is that possible? Because that is this kind of unique time in life where kind of everything kind of seems to be happening. And interesting what you were saying about the age of onset of perimenopause. And I remember saying to my doctor when she kind of said I was postmenopausal, and that just needed to land for a moment. I said, aren't I too young? Because I didn't have a clue. I was really ignorant. And she shared with me that, goodness, how old am I now? 50. So I must have been a couple of years ago, and she was sort of 42. She said, well, it started for me at 42. But I know Naomi Watts is releasing a book, or has published a book, because perimenopause started for her at 36, and she was just starting to plan a family. And so do you come across women, and if you do, how do you support them when perimenopause comes along, when they're still in a family planning stage of life? I mean, that's got to be devastating and so tough.
It is devastating, and it is tough, and it's in some ways increasingly common. And if I go back to kind of what I was saying before about the average age of women, hitting menopause, reaching menopause, and the years before, what I did want to add, I guess, is that women can actually reach menopause far earlier. So if they reach it between 40 and 45, this is actual, that day of menopause that I mentioned, it's referred to as early menopause. If they reach menopause before that, it tends to be referred to as primary ovarian insufficiency, really lovely terms as always. And it does definitely happen. I think there's records of teenage girls hitting menopause and things. And so there's so many more layers when women are reaching menopause, at those far earlier ages than, as I said, 51. There's also women, I guess, who may have what's called surgical or medical menopause. And so surgical menopause may well be because they've had their ovaries removed. Sometimes that's kind of work, and usually they've had everything removed. If their ovaries are coming out as well, it might be because of endometriosis. It might be because of a strong family history of ovarian cancer. And medical menopause is typically when they are put into menopause by taking medication, and that might be in the context of breast cancer. So when they're being treated for particularly a hormone-driven breast cancer, then they may well be put into menopause as a kind of prophylactic preventative for a recurrence. And so in those circumstances, women can often be far, far younger. For some, that means they miss out on having children. If they wanted children, or even if they were ambivalent, just having that choice taken away brings so many challenges, as you can appreciate. And also going through those, the experience of menopause itself and everything it brings, it's out of sync with what is the natural, normal age of menopause. I'm putting that in quotes. And so they often feel very, very isolated as well, because their friends don't know what the hell they're talking about. And, their peers who they spend most of their time with are just not able to relate. And they also can't relate to older women who are going through menopause, in the typical kind of age ranges, because life is so different between, your 30s and then your late 40s and 50s and things. But we definitely are also seeing that real kind of collision between perinatal and perimenopause, because women are having children later in life, particularly second and third. And, the perinatal period is quite challenging time, particularly hormonally. And it can also then mask what is actually happening in terms of women moving into perimenopause. And I've definitely had clients who would have said to me, retrospectively, I know I was in perimenopause, but because I had a baby or a toddler, all of those kind of symptoms were attributed to postpartum period, breastfeeding still, all of that kind of stuff. And it's full on because we just don't appreciate the significance of our hormones on our well-being. And I mean, there's certainly pockets of professionals who do. Professor Jayashri Kulkarni at the Her Centre at Monash University, she's a psychiatrist. She heads up the research centre there. And she's been, kind of researching women's hormones and the impact on women's mental health for decades and decades and decades. So this is not new to someone like her and other pockets of health professionals as well. But certainly even getting in across to most health professionals, let alone the broader community, it's been well overdue. We are way behind.
Yes.
And, because of that, we are really only starting to, the likes of myself are really only starting to kind of try and communicate very widely just what a significant period of time this is and for what reasons it's so significant.
Yes. And thank you for that, because it's easier to get your own stuff sorted and kind of move on, isn't it? It is easier. But in some ways, when you've got this fire in your belly about something, it's joyful to be able to create something that can support other women. Not easier, but joyful.
Yeah.
And so depression's something that I really wanted us to talk about, because obviously it is such a significantly difficult time of women's life that nearly 1 in 4 feel as though, this is all a bit much. And, if you are listening and you are feeling that way, please connect with Kirsten and her team at All About Her. Please reach out. Please go to your GP. Please call someone, call Lifeline, reach out. There is support, there is help, there is life absolutely on the other side, and certainly absolutely through this transition. It doesn't have to be as hard as it is if you're well supported. So, but depression is, I've been there. That has been a part of my life a long time ago, and it's horrendous. You can't put into words how tough it is to experience depression. And yet there's depression, and then there's menopausal depression, and you discern between them. Can you tell us more about that? What ladies listening can look out for, what fellas listening can look out for in the ladies in their lives, and share with us a few insights if you could, please.
Sure. I think, again, this is where Professor Kulkarni's done some amazing research and really discovered, I guess, that menopausal depression can look different to what we would typically call major depressive disorder. And that women, therefore, sitting in front of GPs, uninformed psychiatrists, uninformed psychologists, may not meet the criteria, are unlikely to meet the criteria for major depressive disorder, and therefore it kind of gets dismissed. I guess having worked in the perinatal space for such a long time as well, we learned some time ago that perinatal depression can often have a flavour of irritability that is not typical of depression in women at other stages in their life. Except for other stages where there's a lot of hormonal stuff going on. And so if we think of puberty, pregnancy, postpartum, and perimenopause, and in those early years, postmenopause, they're all periods of time where our hormones are just going nuts. There's kind of no rhyme or reason to them. And the research is really showing that when women become depressed at those periods of times, the etiology, the cause of it is hormonal. Whereas major depressive disorder may still well kind of have some neurological bases to it, which, funnily enough, we know more about hormonal-driven depression than we do about other
Oh, wow.
other types of depression. Yeah, yeah. We're still trying to work out what kind of causes depression, from that neurological perspective. But, those periods of time. So if we're having a depressive episode and there's not that kind of hormonal life stage that I mentioned before, then for women, it tends to be far more the lethargy, the teariness, we're kind of in, apathy, that kind of thing. So there's a lower level of energy to it, and a sadness, and a consistent sadness. When we look at, or when we notice, hormonally driven depression, what we often notice is more irritability and anger, and there's an energy to it. So certainly a lot of perimenopausal women will say that they're exhausted, for sure. I'm not pretending otherwise. I know what that feeling's like. I've lived it for a long time. But nonetheless, despite the exhaustion, there's a bit of that. With the irritability comes the kind of, quick to fire up, quick to
snappy,
say things that you regret. Yeah, snappy.
Yeah.
So that's what I would, kind of refer to as there's an energy to it, because there's, this spontaneous outburst. Particularly with perimenopausal depression as well, the picture is inconsistent, though, and this is where it certainly would therefore fly in the face of criteria of like major depressive disorder, because our hormones are fluctuating so much. We can have, small periods of time where the planets are aligned, or essentially our hormones are looking like our reproductive years, and therefore we're feeling okay. And then we can have some periods where we're feeling very low, and the low might be when we're also bringing the snappiness to the picture. So if someone was to go to a doctor and they say, look, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, I'm fighting everyone's heads off, I can't think straight and all the rest. And the doctor starts asking questions, or even the psychologist starts asking questions and starts to hear, oh no, I have good days. I have days where I feel like my mood is quite okay, and I don't feel overwhelmed, then often that would put depression out of the picture.
Yes.
It might even start to bring a bipolar, thinking, which is very worrisome. I mean, if it's bipolar, definitely need treatment. But because of the inconsistency, the good days and then the really terrible days and the irritability and stuff, a very naive health practitioner could start to would either just dismiss it, stressed, burnt out, or may well start to be thinking, as I said, kind of a bipolar disorder, and certainly the medication for bipolar disorder is pretty full on. When it's a hormonally driven depression, so therefore not only does it look different, and is experienced differently. So both in terms of the irritability is more of a common feature, and it's inconsistent. The other thing is that even if it is spotted, sometimes GPs will just hand out, SSRIs, antidepressants and things like that. And we know the British Menopause Society has brought in first line of treatment for menopausal depression as being hormone therapy. Because the etiology is hormone, is hormonally driven. So, I mean, for women that are going into this period of time and they're already on antidepressants, there's no need to come off. But what they might find is that their medication starts to become less effective. And they might have felt as though they were managing their history of depression very well with, whatever they do kind of, to manage themselves and look after themselves as well as their medication. And then they start to find, like, why isn't this medication working? And that may well be because of the hormonal changes that are occurring. So in instances like that, they're not likely to have their medication suggested to stop. They'll probably be advised to continue, and hormones might be added to the picture. For women who are experiencing for the first time depression, anxiety, any of those kinds of issues, they will, if they're sitting in front of a menopause-informed doctor, they will likely be advised to begin hormone therapy, see how that goes. And if that's not enough, and that can be a long process of tweaking that to kind of get that right, they then might add an antidepressant to the picture as well. But yeah, it's really important. It's really important for women and the healthcare providers to know this stuff. Psychologists, if they don't know this and they've got someone coming for depression who says they're depressed, but as I said, that inconsistent picture could be quite confusing. And they also might find that the interventions they typically use to assist, and which are usually effective, aren't effective. And that's because the cause isn't being addressed if they're not on hormone therapy.
That's right.
Not everyone can take hormone therapy or wants to, so I'm absolutely respectful of people's choices, but it's important for us to know all these things.
It really is. So we can advocate for ourselves, because we and general practitioners, gosh, I mean, I don't envy the role that they have with having to know a little bit about so much, and obviously we get referred, and we can find the ones that we love and adore, and maybe women of this age, this time in their lives, might gravitate towards another woman in a similar a female GP, but yeah, I think it's so empowering to know, and for women listening who might be thinking about their mental health and thinking, well, yes, my anxiety's been sort of all over the place, and what I've been doing in the past isn't helping like it did once, and maybe mood changes, like you say, that irritability, that snappiness, and that inconsistent kind of nature of it all. Once we know that this is what we might expect, like you were saying before about not being able to find the right word. I mean, I thought, gosh, what does this really mean? And that creates more anxiety and more worry. And then I know with myself, when I get really highly anxious, two significant things happen to me when my anxiety is not well managed. And that is, I start to sense that the floor feels like it's moving on occasion. I'll just have that sense of kind of, I can't describe it other than that, because I can't find the words.
I think you've described it pretty well, though. My feet started feeling weird with that description.
And the other thing is, I can't put my ideas together the same way, that prefrontal cortex kind of engagement. It's just... And so, so just to know, look, oh goodness, this time we've had together is just not enough, but golly, it's been so interesting and so informative. And so how can listeners connect with you and the team of professionals that are all, golly, we're nearly there. And the team of professionals at All About Her, the Centre for Menopause, how can, please, websites and Instagram. I mean, you'll learn. I mean, I have, as well, learned just from, it's so nice to kind of just be able to scroll through someone's Instagram page and see some really kind of interesting stats, and then you want to dive in deeper. So, all the websites and all the places, please, Kirsten, if you could share those with us now.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, we are all about her.
I love it.
Really, literally. And that's just as much for the health practitioners that become members of All About Her as it is for our client community. And I guess that's the thing. I am really trying to grow a community of health practitioners who have, at least a decade, if not more, under their belt in their chosen health discipline. But also have that real passion for working with women as they're kind of navigating the perimenopausal, menopausal transition, midlife, all of that stuff. No surprises, the practitioners that we have at the moment, we're all at different stages of this journey. I think we get really attracted to working with clients when you have such a profound experience yourself. We're looking for more practitioners to join All About Her, and from the full suite of allied health, kind of services. So everything from our physios to our naturopaths to our osteos to our acupuncturists, psychologists, therapists, the whole shebang. There's a list of practitioners that we're really looking to have join. So practitioners join as professional members, and people can go to the website if they're interested and have a bit of a look at what they get for their membership. And they can also book a chat with me to talk more about it if they want to. And then for clients, we just really, we have only launched, so we don't have a heap of practitioners, and we only have kind of therapists, naturopaths, nutritionists represented at the moment. We certainly want more in all of the categories and across categories, but we do have people available. And the really cool thing is it is a niche area, understanding the impact of hormones on women's mental health, hormones at this stage of, on women's mental health and well-being, and their physical health as well, which is why I really wanted the other types of allied health practitioners involved and available. We've got resources on there. We will be starting some, I do a lot of podcast guesting myself, which is heaps of fun. I do webinars, training for professionals as well as for the community. It's all on the website, which is allabouthercentre.com.au. And then you can also find us on Instagram, largely, All About Her Centre on Instagram, as well as the Midlife Psychologist, which is me. And there's underscores between each of those words. So the_midlife_psychologist. Both of those are Instagram accounts. Yes, they're linked to Facebook, but I keep getting bots and spam and stupid things kind of piping up and posting on my threads and stuff. So I don't spend a lot of time on those, I have to admit. Or my LinkedIn. Because there's so much conversation that is happening in this particular space on LinkedIn, which has really been quite fascinating, because I've been on LinkedIn most of my career, or when it came around, but I haven't necessarily found it particularly informative or helpful or useful. But when it comes to this particular life issue, I'm learning so much and connecting with other great people, which is super cool. So that's how people can find me. That's how they can find All About Her. As I said, we're really looking for health practitioners, and we're definitely looking for clients as well. It's just our thing. It's so cool to work with midlife. Midlife women are really cool.
Aren't they? Aren't we?
Gen Xers in particular, the millennials coming up through.
Yes.
We all have that kind of sweet spot for women in and around our own generation. So you'll definitely feel the commitment, passion and interest of the health provider that you're connected with, should you choose to. So
Yes. Oh, goodness. Oh, thank you. Gosh, I really encourage all of you to please go and check out those links. And if you're out for a walk and you didn't get a chance to jot those down, then they're in the show notes, which you can find in the notes under each episode on whatever platform it is that you are listening to. And just before I say goodbye, Kirsten, I just really want to really acknowledge each and every one of you who is listening. If you are going through this time of life, or you are not even perimenopausal, but you are, a woman trying to do all the things, and that probably sums it up. There's so much to do. And for the fellas listening, I love your feedback. I love your input. And I really appreciate the way you're learning about yourselves and your own mental health, and the ladies in your life as well. And it's, life can be really tough. Like, it's demanding. It's demanding to have to get up every day and do so much. And so, where we can find places to give ourselves a little bit more grace, a little bit more space, a little bit of a lightened load, maybe say no a little bit more, and, just do a little bit of an audit, I think, especially if you are in the middle of kind of this menopause journey, and with elderly parents and young kids or teenage kids or older kids, wherever you're at, it doesn't hurt to sometimes just sit down and do a little bit of a list of what's happening, and maybe where you can carve out a little bit more for you. So Kirsten, thank you. Oh, I've just so enjoyed our conversation. It's been brilliant. And yes, next time you're in Melbourne, let me know, and we can bring our keep cups.
I'm there in October. I'll be in touch.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah.
Fabulous.
Definitely.
Oh, awesome. Okay, it's a deal.
The Centre is having a conference, women's health, mental health, and so check it out.
How brilliant. Is that through Monash?
Yeah.
Oh, so what date is that? You probably don't know off the top of your head.
Wednesday the 9th is of October.
Wednesday, the 9th of October.
Whatever the Wednesday is around that date to the Friday.
Oh, okay. I am going to make sure. So if you are listening and you are looking to further your own professional development, then that's something to sort of keep in mind as well. And that's through Monash University, and that's called the Her Centre. So Google that, as I will too, and I will actually put those details in the show notes as well. Wow, fantastic.
Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. Well, thanks again, Kirsten. Thanks again for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. You're on WA time, so it's only not even lunchtime for you. And listeners, thank you, no matter where you are and what time you're listening. I love your company. Thank you for joining me. Thank you always for your brilliant reviews and feedback, and for letting me know how the podcast is landing and what else it is that you really like for me to record episodes on. I always appreciate any of your emails and messages. So take care of you, and I will be back with another episode next week. Okay, bye. Thank you so much for joining me for this week's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and leave a review. To keep the conversation going, I'd love you to join me over on Instagram. You'll find me at Dr. Jodie Richardson. Also, if you'd like a copy of my free 5-day mini email course, Calm Your Anxious Brain, then jump over to my website, drjodirichardson.com, and you can sign up down the bottom. I've really enjoyed having your company. Thanks so much. See you next time.